Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to another episode of Sree's daily global COVID-19 show. My name is Sree Sreenivasan, and it's my honor to convene this daily conversation around all things COVID-19. We discuss three aspects of the crisis on this show: the health crisis, the financial crisis, and the inequality crisis. We're always looking for suggestions. Sree@Sree.net. Today is episode 176. We've been on the air for almost 6 months in a row. We've not missed a single day through the pandemic, and we're so grateful to all of you for being with us. Please hit share right now so your friends and family around the world can join us. We are talking today about You Next, the brand new book by author and photographer Antonio M. Johnson. He's an Atlanta-based photographer. His book is called You Next, Reflections in Black Barbershops. You are going to have a great time learning from and about Antonio, whose work I've been following for a long time. You will meet him in just a couple of minutes. Hi, everybody. I'm Sree, and I'm the Marshall Loeb Visiting Professor of Digital Innovation at Stony Brook School of Journalism and the co-founder of Digimentors, a social, digital, and virtual events consulting company. It's my honor to be here with you every day, and big thanks to all of you who have written in to say this has been such a helpful show to you, that this has been life affirming, this has been uplifting, and you should know that it has been all of those things for me, 176 days straight, and we're so grateful to all of you. Here's what you should know. In our first 165 plus episodes, we've had more than 1 million viewers, 122 million social impressions, more than 300 guests from 62 cities, 16 countries, including the chief scientist of the WHO has been here. We are able to do all this because of Scroll.in and Scroll Global. Please check them out. Big thanks also to our producers, Rose Horowitz at Rose Horowitz 31 and Vandana Menon, Vandana_Menon. We're always looking for speaker suggestions, guest suggestions, and we'd love for you to tell your friends and to share it with them right now. We're live on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, and on LinkedIn. So hit share right now, and your friends can join us live or later. The book that we're talking about is right over my shoulder, and you have my email address right here. Let's connect. Let's talk about how we can take the conversation we have here, the great content we have here, and connect it to as many people as possible. So are you ready? Are you ready to be next? Are you ready to learn from Antonio Johnson? Well, you're about to do so, and I'm so thrilled that he is here. Let me bring him on stage. You can hear him smiling in the back. He is grinning like I am. Hi, Tone.
Hey, Sree.
All right, I'm just giving you a little extra moment in the background there as we do a drum roll here to have you on stage with us. Ladies and gentlemen, Antonio M. Johnson.
Yay. Hi. Hey, everyone. I'm so excited to be here, honestly.
Oh, we're excited to have you. We're excited to talk about your book, talk about your work, talk about all you've done. My first question always, however, is how are you, where are you, and how's your family doing through the pandemic?
Yeah, so I'm doing very well. I'm so excited to be here. I'm just thrilled. I'm very well. I'm healthy. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia right now. I'm in my apartment where I've been since March, socially distancing and just trying to stay as safe as possible. My family back home in Philadelphia are doing very well. They've also been practicing social distancing and staying safe as much as they can. We've been checking in with them just to make sure that they're well, but everyone is doing well.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. And so This was a big week for you. Tell us what happened this week in terms of launching this and the book and more.
Yeah, so this has been a massive week for me. I'm on cloud nine. I've been waking up every day at like 6 a.m. just grinning, like so excited. The book, You Next, is finally out and available for the world to see. I could not be more excited. The book launched on Tuesday, and the feedback has been absolutely phenomenal. People from all over the place, friends from college, friends from high school, family members, people that I don't even know have been messaging me on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, saying that they received their copy of the book, how much they've been just moved by the images and the essays. And I'm over the moon.
And you also got your podcasting started, your IG lives. Talk about all of that.
Yeah, so my every Thursday I've been doing these conversations called the lineup, where I've been talking to artists, photographers, writers, brilliant thinkers about their relationship to the barbershop and some of the work that they have and how the barbershop has influenced some of those works. So that's been really fun. That's been every Thursday. And it's just been a great way to connect with people, but to also get the word out about the book and some of the things that my special guests have been up to. But I must say this before we go any further, Sree. This is such a full circle moment for me, because I want to say, and I want everybody to know this, that the very first time that I had an opportunity to share You Next, just the idea, before the Kickstarter launch, which we'll talk about, before anything happened, you gave me an opportunity to speak to your friends, all of your great guests at your social media workshop in New York. And it was the very first time that I had an audience to share what my idea was. And it gave me such a confidence to speak about what I'm doing and to actually go out and do it. And I'm so honored and I'm so thankful for that opportunity. And I'm just like thrilled that we can talk about it now being done after all this time. So thank you.
Well, thank you. It was January 2018, and
Yes.
you were already doing your photography in the
Yes.
barbershops, and you
Yes.
came up to New York. You were here for other things, and I
Yeah.
heard that you had a great new project. So we had 200-300 people in that room,
Yeah.
others watching online, and you went up there and you knocked them. They were so excited to learn from you and to know about this project and the opportunity that you created. And what's important is you're telling the story of communities, plural, but you
Yes.
also, what I loved was the work that you've put into it, right? This reflects
Yeah.
years of work, and to see it go from a website to a Kickstarter to a book that I can order, and it's now in my on my shelf behind me here. It
Yeah.
tells you the importance of seeing things through and just completing something, which isn't always possible for many of us.
And not always easy, but you know what I'm saying? One of the things that I think you hit on, the community aspect, is that I had a community of people, you, the Kickstarter, who really helped support me through this entire process. And I am just so honored to have that community of support.
So let's talk about this. So tell us about just the title itself. What does
Yes.
You Next mean? And where does that come from? And take us into the idea of the barbershop cultures, I think is the right way to think about it.
Yeah. So You Next, the book is called You Next, Reflections in Black Barbershops. You Next is a phrase that is heard throughout the country in so many barbershops. It is both a question and it is also a statement that you hear people make. You know, when you go inside of a barbershop, you'll ask someone, "You next?" You know, and then your barber might tell you, you know, "You're next." So it, like I said, it's both an invitation, it's an invocation, and it really does. It gives you a charge to be what I've been saying, the next best great thing that you can be. And you can do all of that inside the barbershop. This book is rooted out of just a love for being inside the barbershop. I speak often about how I feel like I was raised and I grew up in the barbershop. There were so many experiences and so many lessons that I learned from being in different shops, shops that I would, go to with my dad when I was a kid. I was just so moved by the community of people that he knew in the barbershop and the people that knew him. It gave me an opportunity to see inside his life, beyond just being my dad. He had these full experiences. He also had these friends that I could, learn from. But also the barbershop for me as a kid was an opportunity to, really imagine who it was that I could be. I would look at the style guide, like one of the pictures that was just up there, and imagine who I wanted to be in my life, who I felt like I had the opportunity to model my life after. And I'm I'm just so honored that I had those experiences.
So cool to see these pictures, and I know people are enjoying that. Let's go say hi to folks who are watching. Everyone, please tag a friend right now. Please hit share. Please retweet. This is such an important conversation, and you're going to have a lot of fun meeting and talking to Tone. He's Antonio. He goes by Tone, and he's on Twitter at Antonio M. Johnson. And your IG is?
My IG is Antonio M. Johnson as well.
All right. The M, let's hear it. What is the M?
The M is Marquise.
Okay. Very cool. All right.
It's the interesting thing about the M is that my mom gave both my sister and I the same initials.
Okay, so shout out to the sister.
Yeah, Elisa Monet Johnson.
Nice. And of course, shout out to mom.
Yeah, shout out to my mom. I know she's watching. Donna Johnson and my dad, Ronald Johnson. They're all watching tonight. Hey guys.
Very proud, folks. You've got an amazing son, and you must. What a moment for you also to see this happen. So let's go and do a little global tour. Jonathan's watching from the East Village. Jonathan.
Hey, Jonathan.
He's been here every single day for 176 episodes. And
I love this.
And do you have a favorite East Village or New York City memory you want to share? No, you, Tone.
Oh, me. Oh my goodness. Do I have a favorite New York City or East Village moment? I feel like I don't have a specific East Village moment, but I remember all the nights that I would go to, which is no longer here, Kinfolk with all of my friends and just party all night long. Those are probably my favorite memories. And I wish I was there now, hanging out.
Rajan says, good evening from Long Island. And I want to do a shout out to Rajan. One of the things he's done is he's put together for us a list that we say at the end of every episode, where we had asked Kimberly Crenshaw, the great Columbia Law School professor who coined the term intersectionality, what can we do to be allies of the Black community? And she said, say their names. So he's put together an incredible list, and we say that as often as we can on the show. And he's tagging his friends. Everybody tag a friend. Look how easy that is. Rajan is doing it. IDXR says hello. And
hey.
That is, you want to say hello?
Hey, that's Donovan Ramsey.
Yes, Donovan. How are you, Donovan? And our friend Charles is watching. Charles and Mary Cunnan Carroll. Hello. They're also sponsors of the show. And what we used to do the sponsorships right at the top, and we do them now about 15 minutes in. So you'll meet them in a little bit again. Sharmila is watching and tagging friends. Look at that. That's pretty cool. And Tammy Robinson, go.
Hey. This is like Tammy's like a family member. She's from Philly. So much love and so much support. Thank you for being here.
Awesome. And Laura says, I remember hearing from Antonio, and I followed his amazing work on social ever since. Congrats on the book. And Laura, great to see you. And
it's so good to see you.
Tammy says, love you, family. And Donna says, love you too, and Tammy. So all these connections are great. And let's see, Philly in the house. And, and let's see, so many people watching. Donovan says, do you have any place you love as much as Tone loves the barbershop? No, I don't think so. There is, I'll tell you, there may be one place that I haven't been to yet. Jonathan and I are supposed to go to the Nutella Cafe in the village. So if it still exists, I'm sure I'll love it. Maybe not as much as a barbershop, but I will probably love it a lot. Are you a Nutella guy?
I do like a Nutella and bananas.
Okay, nice. Eddie says, what a great and insightful interview. Thank you. Just people are dropping in from all over, which is so cool. And Sunny Slaughter says, hello, dropping in from the DMV. This is in the Washington area, but I'm also popping into Singapore at the same time and saying hello. And so many other folks. Jonathan, yeah, please.
Can I tell you a real quick story about the DMV? So I went to Morgan State University in Baltimore. So that's in the DMV area. And I could not find a barber in the area that I really liked. So I would go back and forth every other weekend from Baltimore to Philly just to get my haircut. So that's how much I love. That's how much I love the barbershop.
All right. Jonathan's hair is sort of like mine, but what people don't understand is that us follically challenged people also need a haircut, because otherwise
Absolutely.
that's a problem. Donna's telling everybody share, share, share. So that's good. Rajan just got a haircut. And Apollo's watching from Vegas. And Apollo has been on this show to talk about what COVID's like in Vegas. But do you have a Vegas memory that you're allowed to share in public?
So the very first time I went to Vegas, I probably was like 11 or 12. I went with my dad, and he was out like hanging out at the shows and all of that. And after a certain time, kids under, I think anybody under 18 has to be supervised by an adult. And one night, one of his shows ran over. So I had to meet him at another hotel. I was playing at a GameWorks. I connected with another family and had them walk me to where he was. So that's my favorite Vegas story.
That is funny. Laura says our family barbershop is our kitchen in Philly. Great service. And I do want to talk to you about barbershops through the pandemic. I think that's important. Apollo says he also just got a haircut. Rajan says he's put in a link to Reflection in Black Barbershops, You Next, by Antonio M. Johnson. And what about grooming practices around the world? We'll talk about all of this in a minute. Sunny says, oh wow, no barbers in the area. And Apollo is linking out to people. Fernando is from LA. So go LA. Go ahead.
Go LA.
Anything you want to share on LA?
Yeah, you know what? I love LA. LA is one of my favorite cities. I don't know if too many people know, but before I was working as a photographer, I was a reality TV producer. And while I was in LA, I worked on a really cool show about furniture, a furniture competition show. And I got so many great haircuts in LA. And when I was back there to shoot for the project, I came across so many great barbers who are doing some amazing health practices in the barbershop that I'm sure that we'll definitely get into.
Nice. And Rajan says the very sobering and angering thing is there's always a new name in 2020 to add to that list of say their names. Tammy says, hey, Tone. And Stefan says, hi, Antonio. Wonderful to see you. Met you at Three Tips Meet one day. Always love the body of work you have built up. And Stefan has a wonderful show on photography and social. I know you would be awesome on that show.
Yeah, we got to connect.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jonathan says there's a barbershop about a block away from the Nutella Cafe, which is there so far. So we need to have you come up, Tone, and then we will go Nutella and banana and a haircut. And
I'm down.
Lisa says, awesome, Tone. Who's Lisa?
Lisa Gavin is my aunt. That's my aunt in Florida. It's so good that she's here. Hey, Aunt Lisa.
You see, I'm saving you time from making a group phone call, right? Like we just said, family Zoom.
Yeah, my Aunt Lisa, my cousin Jahan is probably watching, my cousin Kia. They're my very, very close family. I miss them. I haven't seen them in so long, but I'm glad we can connect here.
Nice. Fernando says he's doing a raise for barbershops and beauty salons in Los Angeles. Wants to raise $100,000 for over 20 salons and barbershops, etc. Such a good project. Please.
Such a great project.
Please write in and tell us about it. Put the URL on the screen. We'll share it here with everybody. So this is so good. And Lisa's responding to you. And Courtney says, I've been trimming my hair myself since before COVID, but don't tell her friend. Hi, all in Tucson, Arizona. Have you been?
I've never been to Tucson, but I definitely think that I want to go. I like the dry heat.
Okay. And then we have people just watching. We're just so great to have everybody here. Thank you all for watching. Now we've got to pay some bills. So, Tony, I'm going to give you a second to go into the comments and say hello to people, share the video, tag some friends as we just say thank you to our sponsors. And when we come back, we're going to talk to Tone. We're going to talk about COVID and the pandemic and what it's done to barbershops. We're going to look at some of the amazing photos in here, absolutely breathtaking pictures, and we're going to take your questions. So please, everybody, share and connect with your friends right now so that they can enjoy this book and this conversation with Antonio M. Johnson. So thanks very much, Tone. We'll see you in about a minute or two, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
I'm just going to let you just catch your breath there. So thanks, everybody. And big thanks to our sponsors for making this happen. We always start with Muckrack Academy, Fundamentals of Social Media, free certification now available, mrac.co/social. More than 4,000 people have taken this free course. Everyone, please share this, a free course for you that I put together with Muckrack Academy, and you get a certificate at the end of it. A big thank you also to nonbelievable.com, divinely delicious cookies on a mission. Each handcrafted cookie provides a meal to those in need. One cookie equals one meal. 20% off with the code SREE. We are also grateful to Charles Cunnincarroll, the inventor in you. This is the title of his book, A Step-by-Step Guide to Your First Invention by Charles, developer of more than 80 patents. He's at Inventor Charles, and his book is called Guide to Invention.com. So please check out his book and get in touch. He makes a great story. I'm just going to show you, because I have it, one of the patents that he had made, the one-handed vegetable bag in stores. So talk about invention, reinvention, and all of that. He's a great person to talk to and to learn from, Charles Cunnincarroll. We also want to thank our event partner, the Rise or Fall Together One Shared World Interdependence Summit 2020, Thursday, September 17th from 9 to noon Eastern Time. Please share with your friends. Look at the quality of the speakers, and it's a free event that anybody in the world can attend. So definitely check it out. And promotional consideration also provided by check out hotstar.com/US. And we also want to thank our friends at She's on Call every Sunday on Facebook. This incredible show, Sundays at 11. I'm proud to work with our friends and surgeons, Dr. Sujana Chandrasekhar and Dr. Marina Kurian, as they interview doctors and physicians in their fields, different experts. We had this time a rehab doctor talking about the impact of COVID, and Dr. Marsha Harris talking, that was with Dr. Monica Gutierrez, and Dr. Marsha Harris talking about colon surgery and what the surgery, the cancer that took the life of Chadwick Boseman. We'll talk about him in just a minute. So please check out She's on Call. It's on Facebook and Twitter every single Sunday. And with that, I think we're ready for Antonio Johnson to join us again. Everyone, please share this with your friends and family, and please comment, and we'll bring Tone on in just a minute to tell you what's coming up. We have shows that we can tell you about for Thursday. Today's Wednesday night. On Thursday night, 24 hours from now, we're going to learn from some dead philosophers, from the very alive Eric Weiner, whose new book is The Socrates Express, In Search of Life Lessons from Dead Philosophers. He's the best-selling author of The Geography of Bliss. His books have been translated into more than 20 languages, and we'll ask him tips on what the philosophers tell us about such difficult times as the pandemic. And then on Friday night at 9, Fighting Disinformation. Melissa Ryan has spent more than a decade working at the intersection of politics, media, culture, and technology. She uses her expertise to help people, policymakers, and institutions combat disinformation, extremism, and online toxicity. You don't want to miss that show. That's all coming up this week. But tonight, we're continuing our conversation with Antonio Johnson, Antonio M. Johnson on Twitter. Tone is right here, and he is talking about all things to do with barbershops. His book is You Next. Hi, Tone.
Next. Hey, well, I'm glad to be back.
And you're next. So for those who picked it at the top, let me remind them the title comes from what happens in a barbershop. You walk in and you generally say, are you next? You know, who's next? Can I get in line? Are you the back of the line, basically, right?
Yeah. Are you the back? Yeah.
And then the barber will say the magic words, you next. And
those magic words mean that you're about to be transformed, right? You're about to go through these turns to become a brand new person. And what I like to say is, after every haircut, I have about 72 hours of invincibility. I can do anything I want. I can be whoever I want. And that happens with the transformation, the power of, you next. Those magic words. One thing I will say about the book is that the book is a photographic exploration of all the ways that barbershops serve their communities through the lens of identity and wellness. And so I went to 10 different cities across the country to visit Black barbershops to talk about what that means, and talk to these guys about what it means to be a Black man in America. And I also was able to bring in so many incredible voices to write essays and share their thoughts and their perspectives about what the barbershop means to them. So I'm so incredibly happy. Yes, there's the book. There's a little bit of bio about where I grew up in West Philly, about my time at Morgan State University, which is at HBCU, which is another space that I'm very excited about having spent some time in, a space that I feel like we all need to invest in, very similarly to the Black Barbershop. When we think about things that are happening in our communities, like gentrification, the HBCUs and the barbershops and the churches are some of the ones that are the most vulnerable. So let's find ways to reinvest in those. Go ahead.
Let's see here. Look at these beautiful pictures that Tone has been taking pictures. How many years of work is this?
This is about 3 to 4 years of work. Yeah, I started so I'll tell you a little bit of backstory if I can. I went to a trip to
Cuba. Before that, because I will forget, and you mentioned superpowers and you mentioned HBCUs, and all of that brings to my mind a great bison from Howard University, Chadwick Boseman, who passed away from colon cancer. Great superhero, but in so many ways, a creative person who inspired so many. I wanted to give you a chance to say something about Chadwick right now.
Chadwick Boseman, I think, he represented, the best of us. And I think that when we talk about the power of HBCUs, he represented the power that we hold and the knowledge that we get from there to be great and amazing individuals. Chadwick's career really was able to show so many great Black stories of incredible, powerful Black men. And his legacy on film will be here for years, forever, for us to go back on and refer to just his genius. And another person who was supported by his community. Chadwick spoke really openly a lot about how Denzel Washington invested in his career, Felicia Rashad from The Cosby Show, and how he was supported by his, a band of, fellow actors, a part of his generation, to be what he will be known for. And he'll be very, very, very sorely missed. I'm so thankful that I was able to, see so many of his movies. And another thing that I think about, if I can really quickly, about the health component about this, colon cancer is something that affects Black men disproportionately. However, there aren't too many opportunities for young men to get testing, because if you do not show any pre-existing signs or conditions with your family members, it's difficult for your doctors to write off on it, to have it covered by insurance. So when we think about the larger conversation about health, we definitely should be thinking about how we can change those policies so that we all can be tested to make sure that this doesn't affect any of us in our families.
Beautifully said, and thank you. And I knew he was a bison from Howard University because Kamala Harris went to Howard as well. And there's a beautiful photo of the two of them and together. And I know that a lot of people are now paying attention to HBCUs for a variety of reasons, but that's going to be one of them for sure. The rise of Kamala Harris is a perfect example of the power of HBCUs. So you are going to tell it. Yeah, go ahead.
It's the rise of Kamala Harris. It's the rise of Spike Lee, Toni Morrison. We all went to these HBCUs, and there's incredible talent in them. And I'm just so happy, to be a part of the Morgan family, but also the larger HBCU family.
I love that. Let me see here. My first barber is here watching. My first haircut was given by my mother, Lekha Srinivasan, watching in Kerala, India. And hi, Amma, I love you. Thank you for all the haircuts that I wasn't always cooperative on. I know. And I'm so grateful to you for 1,000 things, but one of them was cutting my hair when I was a little kid, and you gave me my haircut and my 50th haircut or my 100th haircut too, I'm sure. And have you traveled to India?
I have not traveled to India. That's definitely somewhere that I would like to go.
All right. So
when I say it again.
No, so you've got to let us know, and we'll make sure because barbershops and haircutting and all of that's a big part of the Indian culture as well. And people will celebrate your book there too.
I would love to go. I want to be there.
Yeah. By the way, I discovered Chadwick died on the air on the show last Friday.
Oh
We were
wow.
live when we found out, and just before we went on the air, we found out that Tom Seaver, a really famous baseball player who helped the Mets win the 1969 World Series, he passed away just a few hours ago. So
I'm sorry to hear that.
we'll speak about that as well. And Courtney says, I've been trimming my hair myself. You saw that note already.
Yeah,
Lots of other comments coming. Stefan says, one of the things I love to hear about barbers, hairstylists in Los Angeles and other big cities is when they hit the streets to give the homeless much needed haircuts and shaves, making them feel so much better about themselves. What a
absolutely.
beautiful thing to do for these poor souls. And Donna says, we are so proud. And Sunny says, I used to go to the barbershop with my dad. It's where I learned to cut a man's hair, says Sunny. And Sunny, thank you for being here. Here's a link to the book. And Rahajan says, for good or ill, my local barbershop only allows appointments only. I mean, even if it's a couple of hours rather than walk-ins, one of the new normals of the
Yeah,
pandemic. And Courtney is tagging her friends, and everybody should do that. Sunny says, in Birmingham, my friends do a mental health wellness for men at barbershop. So
I
that's
love that.
aspect, and that is so cool. Charles says, I miss my barbershop. My wife is the new barber, and I'm her only customer.
That means that she can pay very special attention to the detail.
Yeah, exactly. And especially when you in a barbershop, the details are really important, right? For like,
Absolutely.
is it here? Is it here? Is it, are you taking it off on this side, etc.? That
You,
really matters.
Yeah, in Philly we have this little thing called the C shape. So a lot of our haircuts have this like really detailed C that goes into our beards and connects our mustaches. So I know all about the detail. Can I go back really quickly to a few other comments? Stefan, you brought up a really great point about the barbers helping the homeless. I saw a lot of that when I was actually in Philly working on the project. There is a barber who pretty much every day goes out in the afternoon to cut the hair for the homeless, and he speaks very candidly about how the transformation, the mental transformation that happens. And I was actually able to witness him cut a few heads that day, and it was absolutely amazing. They look forward to the opportunity to get a haircut, and sometimes you may not have the resources to just have those things, but just somebody thinking of you enough to cut your hair is very powerful. So that happens in LA. That happens all across the country, and that's a really good point.
Thank you. Let's keep going. So many other comments. Sunny says that she's HBCU proud. Her son is a very proud Bison
Yeah,
from
go
Howard
Howard.
University. And Sunny says, I can't wait to read your book.
You're
Steph
gonna love it.
his friends. Eddie says the book includes photos that provide a sense of the social world of the barbershop. Rahajan says, I recognize barbershops as a great third space. Space from home and work for many. Sadly, in corporate shops such as Supercuts, it doesn't allow one to develop a relationship with a barber. Those that work in such rotate after a month or two. After a few years of cheap and not great haircuts, I started going to a non-corporate barbershop, Alexander's in Lake Grove, New York. I enjoyed that cutting experience much more. Sunny says, I'm a tri-state girl with Philly roots. And let's see, Sunny is saying more HBCU love. Stefan says, Antonio, your book will definitely be added to my collection of well
What
over
an honor.
200 photography books. And yes, we will connect and would love to have you on my Spin It Social Hour to discuss your journey and work over the years. All right.
Yes, let's
so
do
you
it.
wanted to talk a little bit about some of your plans, some of the background of the book. And then I
Yeah.
have a surprise for you in just a minute.
Oh, I love surprises. So I started this project after a trip that I made to Cuba in 2016. I was blown away by so many of the very small shops with guys just like literally sometimes on the corner, talking about this street style, just on the corner, cutting hair with very limited resources such as scissors and a comb. But they were giving out these impeccable, fades, and they would have this, this gathering, this community of people who would hang out with them to get their haircut. And it really made me think about all of the times that I was a kid growing up and going to the barbershop. And someone mentioned that the barbershop is the third space. And I totally agree with that. Going to school, going home, you sometimes need a place for kids to explore their identity and who they would like to be and get some other, references and influences. And the barbershop was definitely one of them. And I recognized that while I was in Cuba. So when I came back home, back to New York, I was really thinking a lot about that. It really stuck with me. And one of the original ideas for the book was that that I would bring the photos that I would take, original photography, and tie them back to pieces in Black literature where barbershops appear. Because one of the things that stood out to me when I was reading some of the books at the time, for example, was Toni Morrison's Song of Solomon, and where Milkman finds out that Emmett Till was killed, and he finds that out in the barbershop. And I wanted to find ways to connect the work that I was doing with work that had existed. But what I was able to do was change that idea to elevate it by bringing in new voices that are, emerging just as I'm emerging as a photographer. And that's kind of how we got to this state of the book. But as we mentioned earlier, in 2018, I spoke with you. I spoke with everyone at your social media event. And after that, I launched a Kickstarter, which was fully funded, which helped the traveling for this book tour, for the photography of the book. And so from May to the end of the year in 2018, and then in 2019, I traveled throughout the country, 10 different cities, everywhere from New York, Philly, Chicago, Atlanta, DC, Montgomery, Alabama, where I was able to meet with Dr. King's barber, who is still alive. He's no longer cutting, but we were able to chat for about 2 hours at his home and drink some cranberry juice. And then also go to Chicago, where I met with President Obama's barber, Gary, Indiana, Los Angeles, Oakland, so many great cities, just to understand what the full experiences of the barbershop is for people all over the place. And it's where I was able to find out that, barbers in LA, barbers in Oakland, barbers in New Orleans understand that some people do not have access to healthcare. That is, and some people don't have adequate resources to get that. So what they're doing is they're filling that void. They're working with healthcare professionals. They're working with doctors to help teach them to read blood pressure, read for signs of hypertension, so that the men in their community are supported in a healthy way and to get the resources that they need to be healthy. So I'm so honored to have been able to document so many of those stories. And then, throughout the process, I was also able to find out, bringing back to that third space, another opportunity that the barbershop is filling the void in is, as I mentioned, as gentrification affects all of us in some of the most vulnerable communities, the barbershop is actually being a place where people can vote as, their communities change and places close. So all of that is in here. I also was able to, while I was working on the book, visit Fulton County Jail in Atlanta to photograph some of the guys who were inside on cut day and talk to them about how important it was to have a haircut, even for people who are not being seen all the time. But to, and also how important it is to go in front of a jury, to go in front of a judge, presenting the best version of yourself. And, all that happens with the haircut.
Awesome. So I want you to just say the title of your book, because I have a surprise for you. So let's tell me, what do they say at a barbershop when your turn comes?
When you walk into the barbershop, they say, "You next."
You next.
Hey,
what up?
What's happening? This is a surprise. I'm doing very well.
Good. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
I've been listening for the last little bit. I'm like, golly, this guy he's really something else. I need to get this book. And then I was like, I have one copy up here and one downstairs.
You are in it, and you have contributed an amazing essay, but also, Go ahead.
Hello, let's tell people who he is because they're wondering, well, what's going on.
This is Dr. David Wall Rice, who is the professor of psychology at Morehouse College. He's also the chief investigator of the. You have to help me here.
I was going to say you were doing really good. The Identity, Art, and Democracy Lab.
The Identity, Art, and Democracy Lab.
Yeah. But before anything else, I like to consider myself a writer. So I'm very, very honored to have been asked by Tone to contribute to the book. And I put some words together, and I was allowed to have a contribution. And just seeing him from kind of at least midway in the process to realizing the book, here and now is just it's so terrific to see. And you see in his comportment and his engagement here how it's not anything that he takes lightly at all in terms of capturing and framing the experience that happens in the barbershop. So often people can be kind of dismissive or, oh, that's a haircut, but clearly folks who kind of approach from that perspective don't understand the cultural connectivity and tissue that exists. And Tone has done such a great job. I never want to sound condescending, but I'm so proud of him and of the work. I mean, it's just beautiful. Yeah, it's just really great stuff. So,
well,
and then Sree asked me to, and then Sree, Sree, of course, was a professor of mine at Columbia, and I was like, does this guy even really remember who I am? And so he's like, look, man, this guy's how am I going to get you to be on this show? You have, this genius photographer. And I was like, oh, well, let me try and put the kid to bed early and see what I can do.
Well, I'm so thrilled because this connects various strands of my life, Tone in the workshops and things that I do there. But long before that, we won't mention the exact year because I think David and I are roughly the same age. He has a full head of hair and it's all nice color as well, unlike mine. But I've known him since before he was Dr. Rice.
That is very true.
Rice. He was just another student at Columbia Journalism School, and I'm so proud of where he's reached, the heights he has scaled at Morehouse and elsewhere, just becoming a great expert and being able to take the little background in writing that we gave him at Columbia and writing it out in such a beautiful way. David has promised that he'll come back on our show one day and talk about all the work that he does. But everyone, please follow David. And I know he doesn't have a lot of time, but David, if you have a minute, maybe you guys can have a little chat and I'll step out and we'll have you two talk for a minute and then you can leave anytime you need, David.
Okay, of course.
If you can't stay, I would love people to refer people back to the conversation that we had maybe about 2 weeks ago, where we talked about identity orchestration and how important the barbershop is to, forming the identity. You talked a lot about the performance of identity. Yeah. So maybe if you have a few minutes, you could maybe chat a little bit about that.
Sure. You guys are so good. So yes, so my, I'm a research psychologist by training and look specifically at identity theory development. And a lot of the work that I do has to do with storytelling. So you come to know who you are through the stories you tell and the lived experiences that you have. And so, in thinking about identity and stories that you tell or leave untold, that's a performance. And you oftentimes hear about individuals who are performing identities. And the question always is, how close is an individual's performance of themselves to the self who they actually are? And so, one of the things about the barbershop space is that's an arena, that's an arena, especially for young Black men, where they have the opportunity to try out different performances of identity, where they get to view different performances of identity, and they get to be in spaces where they are affirmed or disaffirmed in certain ways, in certain healthy ways. I'm always looking at kind of an asset-based approach. So I'm always interested in where and how the strengths are. And I think that, as I think of, and you were asking me questions when we were sitting down and talking, what does the barbershop mean to you? What would be the best things that you would pull out in your ideal barbershop? You asked me much more eloquently than that. But one of the things that I said is I think that it's such an important cultural, again, space, because individuals can be themselves, can hazard to be. And that's so rare for Black folk in general and Black men in specific. You know, we all want to, as we think about identity and expressions of self, we always want to coordinate ourselves in these spaces where we can just be. And in the
Yeah.
barbershop, you can be, right? You can be, and you can be loved and affirmed again, and be disabused of some notions that you might have in ways that so often are attached to loving kindness. And even though that loving kindness might not feel gentle, it still is a space where you can be held accountable, and
Yeah.
held accountable in a way that's not particularly caustic or violent, or is viewing you as you are in the outside world. So that has a lot to do with identity balance in my theory, and how it is that contexts matter. Oftentimes you hear people talk about how I couldn't be but what I am because of context. Well, context isn't determinative in that way, right? Context informs identity, but it doesn't define it. So spaces like the barbershop have this tremendous, beautiful ability to inform how it is that individuals feel good and comport themselves,
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a really good point, and I want to mention that for some people, not all spaces are offering the love and kindness. But when we think about the barbershop, which is certainly not perfect, like any other spaces, how do we get to a point where we are being more inclusive and more inviting of different identity expressions, even if they're not necessarily in line with this status quo?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think one of the things that is so important is the interrogation of the self through the lived experience. So one of the
Mhm.
things is, even if you don't think, well, I wouldn't be that way, or I wouldn't do those things, because of the lived experience that you have, most likely someone around you has live their life in a way that you might not have understood at all, right?
Right.
And I think respecting the lived experience, really being reflexive. I'm doing a lot of thinking and writing around that right now, is this idea of reflexivity. So before you kind of visit out and give these analyses of the world, it's so important to be reflexive and figure out what it is that you're going through, what it is that you're doing as you're,
Mhm.
I love James Baldwin, he's like the patron saint, right? Baldwin and
Yeah.
Morrison.
Yeah.
And James Baldwin has this thing where he says, there is this term, this derogatory term, the N word, right? That
Mhm.
somebody feels that they need to call me this thing. But
Mhm.
what you have to realize is that if you're calling me that, that says something about you. It's the psychology in you. It's not me.
Mhm.
So when
Right.
you're calling me that word, I'm going to give you your problem back. You deal with that. That's you,
Mm.
not me. And so
Mhm.
I think that as we're striving to ensure and to shore up spaces so that they are healthier, right? It
Yeah.
becomes important. It becomes important for the folks who are the arbiters, or the sacred space holders of those environments, to really think about, okay, where is it that I want for folks to be able to come so they can be themselves,
Yeah.
and I think
Yeah.
that's an ideal, and many times we're going to fall short of that ideal, but if we can kind of strive toward that, I think that provides this healthier way of being.
Yeah. One of the things that I want in my work one of the things that I want to be evident in my work when, I'm long gone, is that I have these themes of both home and healing. Um,
Mm.
I would like to ask from you, for people who have young children who go to the barbershop. I know you spoke about your experience with your kids going to your barber sometimes,
Yeah,
and it being a little bit difficult to
it
navigate.
was rough.
What
It was
are
rough
it
on
was
those young ears.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, you know, how do you help those young people with those conflicting views of identity expression
In what space? In the barbershop space, or
in
or
the
in
barbershop,
general?
or yeah, in the barbershop or in general?
I don't know. That's the $1 million question. As I'm raising two Black boys right now, how is it
Yeah.
that you have them navigate those spaces again. And this is my one trick pony night, I guess. This idea around reflexivity and empathy, putting yourself where other people are. And then also this issue of accountability. I'll go a little bit to what it is that we were talking about. I had this wonderful barber, David Sheriff, who I wrote about in the book, and Dave's place was for grown-ups. You know what I mean? And so you could bring a kid in there, but somebody would slip and say something, right? And people were trying to be respectful and all that. And I think that's almost halfway there, right? Is people are aware and are wanting to be on their best behavior when maybe a young kid is in there, or when a woman's in there or something like that, But I think that one of the things that I did and I felt comfortable in my barbershop was holding my friend who was cutting my hair accountable. I was like, you can't talk to people like that, man. You can't do that. And a lot of it was said in a joking way. But then when people left the room, it was like, dude, you can't do that. I remember when Trump was elected, it was there were people who were so fragile who were coming to him to kind of be cool. And I remember he was just going in on somebody. He was like, you don't understand. Trump's going to be president for, 25 years. And this guy was really, really crushed by it. Right. And I remember he was cutting my hair at the time. And I remember just tapping him. And he chilled. Right. And then when he left, I was like, dude, you can't do that because you are in a very, very special place. He's a young guy, relatively young. You're in a special place where you really are impacting and, have some healing ability over these people. You talk about this idea of home and health, or belonging and health. They really are one and the same if we're doing it right. This idea of belonging. Bell Hooks talks about belonging in places called home, and that's where you're able to find this resource of health and affirmation. Of course, this is what's going on now, right?
Of course.
So I think that as we're trying to look at and make sure that people are healthy and whole, and that you're having these spaces that are nurturing and aren't caustic, you hold people accountable. If you know better, it becomes your responsibility to share that better knowledge to other people.
So we have a visitor. Let's introduce us, please.
This is my youngest son, Stokely Harris Rice. He can't hear because I have my earbuds in, but he's long since been supposed to have gone to bed. He was playing with some Legos and he's up. Okay, go to bed, buddy. I love you. Good night. Get out of here.
We're going to let you go. We're going to let you go, David. Folks, I want you to know that this was amazing to just have this moment of the two of them talking. I wanted that to just continue, but I want David back to come and talk about his work on our show. We showed a picture of you interviewing Stacey Abrams on the website. So everyone, check out David's website. You can find that very easily online. dwallrice.com, DWALLRICE.com. I want to show a couple of comments that have come through here, including Stony says, OMG, whose house?
Morehouse.
There you go.
I know that's right.
And Rahajan has linked to you and your faculty webpage. Wow. And Donovan Xavier says the house is in the house. And
there you go, Donovan.
The title is Beloved. This is your essay in the book. And speaking of HBCUs and your website, and Sunny says that's one of her other favorite HBCUs. So this is great. David, I'm going to let you go, get back to your work, and you promise that you'll come back. This doesn't count. You should
absolutely know. Absolutely. No. And I was on way longer. Toad, I'm so happy for you. You got way too many books back there behind you. You need to make sure those are, come on, what's going on? You know what I mean?
So listen, if I can just say this, I'm going on the record. The books behind me are for the Kickstarter contributors, and they're going out tomorrow.
I was like, hold on, man, because, come on. We need to get them. We need them out in the streets. But congratulations.
They're accounted for. Thank you.
Congratulations. So happy for you. And we'll talk soon. Okay, brother?
Yes, we will.
All right, Sree, thanks so much, man.
Thank you so much, David. We'll see you.
Take care.
Thank you.
What a surprise.
I knew you would like that, so I brought him in. And it gave me a chance to talk to him. I haven't talked to him in a while. And as I said, I'm just so proud of everything he has done. Let's look at some more comments. In Bangladesh, barbers give you head massages. In India, too. Vandana says, I used to go to my dad with my dad to the local barbershop. He still swears by his barber's head massages. And many other comments coming in. Apollo says that barbers were the first surgeons or dentists, I think. So maybe it didn't matter. They could be both. And Rahajan says, during my NYU days in the 80s and shortly after, my go-to place for a haircut was Astor Place Hairstylist, founded in 1947. I'm sure that place has a lot of stories, especially the elaborate hairstyles of the punk era. And Robin,
I also went to Astor Place Cuts for a little bit of time, and then my barber that I was going to fell off the face of the
do you know Robin?
I do. Robin Nicole Comer is a very, very close family friend back in Philly. Love her dearly. I'm so glad that she's able to check out this conversation. Hey.
And Apollo says, being in Vegas, I've gone to Supercuts. It's not the same as the neighborhood shop on, say, Crenshaw in LA.
Absolutely not.
Rahajian says, I've been thinking about my father who died in 2018 a lot lately. And this discussion reminds me how much going to the barber is a bonding experience for fathers and sons. And you talked a little bit about that. It was a really great conversation the two of you had. I'm so grateful that you were able to do it. Rahajan says, in Rome, a young man's first shave was considered an essential part of the coming of age ceremony. Laura says, Identity, Art, and Democracy Lab. I'm going to check that out. Sounds amazing. And
yes.
So many other great comments coming in here. I've got to ask you about one way in which non-African Americans learned about the African American barbershop, and that is through a movie. And you know where I'm going with this.
I know exactly where you're going.
So tell me about this movie, and you think its contribution, for better or worse, about the understanding of the culture, and what is your opinion of it? And just talk about it a little bit. Riff on it for me, please.
Yeah. So Barbershop is a kind of like a classic movie at this point that talks a little bit about, or that takes place in the barbershop through the perspective of through a man, I believe, whose name is Calvin, who's the owner of the shop, who was given the shop given the shop by his father, who initially owned the barbershop. And Calvin is kind of caught up in this dilemma of, should he sell the barbershop to a neighborhood investor and get out of the game and do something else? Or should he hold on to this incredible space that, serves his community? So the movie kind of like follows along as he works through that, but also gives you these glimpses into some of the people's lives who work in the barbershop and some of their day-to-day, dealings and mishaps, and get a chance to get into the characters that kind of frequent the barbershop. I think that for some degree, it is a very close description of what happens in a barbershop in terms of the community that it offers. You get a chance to really see how difficult it could be for a young entrepreneur who is given this business by his father, and the pressure that he feels of maintaining that space, but also being told, by his community, by the customers that come inside, by the guys and the women who work in there, that they actually need this space, that it does something for them, beyond the economics of just giving them, some financial stability, but it helps you mentally. It's a place where you can go to unwind. And one of the characters that Cedric the Entertainer plays talks about how the barbershop is a Black man's sanctuary. It's something that has been mentioned very often. Ralph Ellison talked about it. It's a common theme or thought that we hear a lot of. So the movie Barbershop is good. I believe it takes place in Chicago. However, I do want to say that the interior of the actual barbershop was shot in Denny Moe's barbershop, which is a shop in Harlem, and I was able to get a few photos of Denny Moe, and they're in the book.
Nice.
It's a really great film. If anybody would like to check it out, you definitely should. I want to give a shout out to Eve, who's from Philly. She plays one of a barber in the movie, and I'll say this: Philly has some of the best barbers in the world.
and I know that Anthony Anderson is in the film as well. Superstar.
Anthony Anderson. Yeah.
If people watch that, only know him from that film, won't believe that within a decade he became one of the highest paid, most successful people on TV through Blackish, right?
Yeah, through Blackish. Yeah, he was really great in that film.
Because he plays that kind of buffoon type character.
Yeah, he plays a very goofy character who what this isn't giving anything away, but he he steals an ATM machine, and we kind of like see what happens to him throughout that entire experience, and it all ties back into the barbershop, which is the meeting place for so many of us in the Black community, and also in that film.
Sonny says this is one of those conversations that you want to sit back, put your feet up, and just listen to two powerful men speak their truth to power. In all of them, they were just awesome to be there with us and for us to hear. And Rajan was saying Stokely behind there. That was great. And Sonny says she's following you, Antonio.
I'm going to follow you back.
And Lauren says, LOL, you're so funny, Courtney. And Apollo says the barbershop is in Coming to America. What is that, Velvet? And Roger says he's also a great cop in a different series, including one that was set in New Orleans. And let's talk for a minute about the barbershop, and we'll get back to your book in a minute. But let's talk for a second about the first time I think a lot of non-African Americans were exposed in a movie to a barbershop was in the movie Coming to America.
One of my favorites.
Where Eddie Murphy played multiple roles, even inside the barbershop. It was called, do you remember the name of the barbershop? I still remember it from back then.
I don't remember the full name, but I feel like it had something like We Cut Heads.
Yeah. It was called Mighty Sharp.
Okay, Mighty Sharp. I think that I am confusing that with Spike Lee's film called Joe's Barbershop, We Cut Heads.
Okay, yeah. So this is they're both interesting. So I thought we'd just take a look at that. And you remember seeing this film, obviously. So
absolutely, it's one of my favorites.
So let's take a look at it and see what we can. Let me turn up the volume here.
Cassius Clay. We got a point. Cassius Clay was a bad motherfucker. Hey, I ain't saying Clay ain't bad. I'm just saying I stopped liking Cassius Clay once he changed his name to Muhammad Ali. What kind of shit is that?
Wait a second. A man has the right to change his name to whatever he wants to change it to. And if a man wants to be called Muhammad Ali, God damn it, this is a free country. You should respect his wishes and call the man Muhammad Ali.
His mama named Clay. I'm gonna call him Clay. That's right. I said Clay.
Get out of here.
So the fun part of this scene is that the white guy is also Eddie Murphy.
Yeah.
And he does such a good job in this. Do you know anything about the new film? I've been hearing a little bit about it, but I don't know how you make a sequel to that film.
Yeah, so there's a sequel that was filmed actually here in Atlanta at Tyler Perry Studios. I believe that it was the first film completed in the new studio. I believe that it will be out sometime next year. Eddie Murphy's back. Arsenio Hall is back. So many of the characters that we all love are coming back to make some cameos, and it kind of updates the story about one of, I believe, Eddie's kids, who is, in America at this point and going to be doing whatever it is they do. That's all I know, but I'm really excited about it. One of the things that I think is interesting about that clip that you show was the conversation that they had about Muhammad Ali. In many of the barbershops, Muhammad Ali is seen as a patron saint. Do you know what I'm saying? His photo was there. People speak very fondly of him. I remember very vividly going to a few barbershops in Oakland and them having, actual photographs of him being inside those actual shops and them talking about how friendly he was and how warm he was, and how it was just, we talked a little bit about superheroes, how it felt like a superhero was visiting their space. And so Muhammad Ali is probably one of the most recognizable faces in the barbershop to this day. He stood for something that I think many Black men, many men who are not Black, many women as well, identify with his strength, with his ability to stand firm in what it is that he believed. And he, set a great example for so many of us.
Thank you. Folks, we have just a few minutes left with our friend here. Please share your thoughts and please ask questions. And remember, everyone, you want to follow and connect with Antonio M. Johnson on Twitter.
Yeah.
Check out his website, Antonio-Johnson. and get his book. It's called You Next: Reflections in Black Barbershops. And he's got, I think that is still the cover on it, so fresh. And tell us how the book went from an idea to to being, who did you work with to get it out there, and who are you
Yeah.
able to, how did this all come together?
So one of the things that I'm a very firm believer in is going back to all of my days in church, is, writing something down and having a plan, and looking at this plan and having it come to fruition. So I wrote down all of the ideas that I wanted the book to include. I talked about the themes that I wanted to include, such as fatherhood, entrepreneurship, as Dr. Rice talked about, identity, these components of wellness. I wanted to include all of these things into this body of work. And from the things that I wrote down, I turned that into a proposal. And from the proposal, I was able to really identify what I wanted the book to include, who I wanted the book to speak to, and what I wanted the book to actually do for people once they had it in their hands. And I feel like to some degree I've done that. But from that stage was the next stage that I think is the most important stage, is the actual work. Do you know what I'm saying? It is so often that many people have ideas about things. They have these, thoughts about what they would like to do, but it's the action. And I would like to just, encourage everybody and just inspire everybody to say that if you have something that you want to do, think about it, but try to do something small every day just to build on that. And I, went out to those different cities and sacrificed a lot to just visit places that, I had no, I didn't have a tour guide. Nobody was with me in Chicago taking me to different barbershops. I went inside and I talked to people about what it is that I wanted to do. And I sold them in on my dream. And I let them know that this was something that was really important to me and how they could help me advance the goal that I had. And that's what happened. So from there, after the photos were taken, I was able to secure an agent to help me get the book, to get the proposal in front of publishers. One of the things that I'll say is that process was not easy, because so often the literary world has, kind of, maintained, specific voices and specific stories. But I was able to, sell the book to a publisher. The Chicago Review Press saw my passion, but also saw the value and the impact of what that story could be, and we turned it into an actual book. The process to make the book was something that I learned, and something that was so incredibly challenging but very fun for me, that I think that I would love to do again. It took, looking at the thousands of images that I had, it took, printing out many versions of those pictures to see what they would look like on a page, working with a designer. Now so many of us work with people remotely. And, I would, in a perfect world, I would have been working, right next to my designer on the book at the Chicago Review Press. But what we did was we worked in a Dropbox folder. I gave him very specific ideas that I had, and we kind of turned those ideas into the book. One of the things about the book that I'll say is that I wanted to make people feel like they were looking at a magazine. As a kid growing up, I would spend a lot of time in the barbershop, and there were magazines everywhere. Ebony magazine, Jet magazine, Black Enterprise. And there were also magazines that my parents were, subscribed to. But Vibe magazine was the magazine that I really loved. And I would always catch it in the barbershop. And I was also, like, maybe at 13, subscribed to the magazine. So I wanted the book to have a magazine feel. So when you turn the pages, you'll see, these photos, but you'll also see these really amazing, like, pull quotes. I don't know if you can see that here. that just kind of like take little quotes and references from some of the essays and include them on the pages. I wanted it to feel also like a family photo album, something that you can just go back to very often and be like, I wonder how that person is doing, or I want to know more about that person's experience. And I was able to capture so many of those moments and put them on paper. Here. So that was kind of the process of just, whittling down thousands of images and putting them together on a computer, and then in a proof book, and then making it great.
And you've done just that. Rahajan says, very true. I have many dreams, but they have to be transformed into plans and then action, even incremental steps. So those
baby steps. I'll tell you, like if you just say, like, you know what, I want to be a clothing designer, just draw out the clothes, and then say, I'm gonna make a sweater today. That one sweater can turn into something else. Just take one day at a time.
I would say that about this show. It started as a phone call where we said, okay, everybody get on a conference line, let's talk about COVID. And here we are 176 days later with what looks like a television production. And we're so honored with all these fabulous guests. And also here, Chitachi, who was a guest on our show on July 4th, she came out to say, what does America mean to her? And what does it mean? It was so moving to have her with us. And Sunny's saying hi to her. Glad you could join us. I'm going to get my book, but after the pandemic, I will need it signed. Thank you in advance. She's not asking. You notice she's not asking.
She's telling me.
Yeah, she's telling you.
It'll happen.
Yeah, it'll just happen. It'll automatically happen. I believe it. And Rahajan, I said, has put together this list of names. If you have time, Tone, before we go, I'd love for you to join me in reading and saying those names. I'd be very honored. But
I would love to.
That, and before we wind up here, I do want to show you some photos from that night that we spent together with everybody back in 2018. And here's a photo that you could see of you talking, and there you are in the orange shirt, and there's our friend Donovan. And behind you, you can see, so this is from Twitter that I went back in and found these pictures. And this is such a good picture. And what else do we have? That's a photo taken by Stefan Kaplan. He also took this picture, which, look at the size of the room. That's a full room. And Stefan took it. And Jonathan, if you can see right here, the gentleman in orange towards the front, not the gentleman with the glasses in the black glasses, but right behind him, that's Jonathan Borstein, who is watching us today. There's several people watching us today who are in that photo all those years ago and still with, and they're watching today. So this show to me is replicating that evening. And that's what I always wanted in this show, to be a place where we can chat and talk and just have that kind of conversation. And this is a great photo that Stefan took. So I wanted you to see this as well. And you remember speaking to such a big crowd. You weren't used to doing that.
No. I mean, I'll talk to anybody. But I was very I didn't know what to expect. I just went up there and shared, the things that I felt like were really special. I remember telling the story about how important the barbershop was to me, but also the story about my uncle, who was a barber who would cut hair. Yeah, I remember this cartoon sketch, who was a barber at another HBCU, Cheney University, who would cut hair there, but also on the weekends he would cut hair. How special and how impactful his life was to me. And then I remember showing photos from Cuba. So like I said, this is a full circle moment for me, and I'm so happy that we were able to bring this all together.
And that's a cartoon that was done that day by Connie, our Connie's son. She's at Cartoon Connie on Twitter, and she said, instant fan of this project, the You Next project from tonight's Sree Tips workshop. So I'm glad that I could show that to you again and remind you of it. And the family that came together that night in that room, 300 people plus you and others who were there. And
the only regret that I have about that night is that or the only thing I wish that I could change about that night is that I wish there was more time in between me speaking and the other guest speaking, because there were so many people that I wanted to talk to that I didn't get a chance to. But hopefully that, so many of them followed me on Twitter, so many of them followed me on Instagram, so many of them contributed to the Kickstarter, and I'm just so thankful for that.
And I'm so excited about that. And that was 2.5 years ago, and to see you follow through. I love giving money to Kickstarters, Kickstart campaigns, and many of them nothing ever happens. So one that comes through is always nice, and at this quality and at this level is so precious and so special. So that night we also had Mike Schmidt there. Mike has written a book. He's a New York Times reporter who's broken so many stories. NYT Mike, and he is going to be on our show next week. He has a big book out on Donald Trump that's coming out.
I can't wait. I'll be here.
Edward, what a great connection that is. And we also had the Mets, the social media manager of the Mets with us, Will Carafello, and he was shooting T-shirts into the audience, as you might recall, that day, and that was fun too. Okay, so let's look at a couple of comments, and then we're going to say the names together. Jonathan says, fun program and nice to find out what happened to the project after the intro in a long ago presentation here in New York. Began with an Uber conference. There's also a couple of days where we had 2 shows, and Sunny saying wow about finding that photo, and Donna saying the same thing. Let me give you a chance to give a good shout out to your folks and your family.
Yeah, so happy that my family is supporting me. I know that I sent the link out to Facebook, and my mom shared it. I think they're having a watch party over there. So hi to everyone watching. My mom and my dad and my sister have invested so much into me, and they have given me so many opportunities to be great and excel. And they've made so many incredible sacrifices that I don't even know about. So I'm just so incredibly blessed and so honored to be a part of the family that I am, that has supported every one of my dreams, even when they probably did not fully understand what exactly I was doing. They have always had my back. So shout out to my family at home. I'm so glad that they're watching, and I'll see y'all soon.
Beautiful. Usha is watching from India, and she likes it, she says. So that's beautiful as well.
Great.
So before we go, first, everyone, buy the book. Go to your favorite bookstore and buy You Next by Antonio M. Johnson. And also follow him on Twitter at Antonio M. Johnson. And on Instagram, that's where this all started. And it shows you, that's what I'm so excited about, that something that started on Instagram is now a book. And he's talking to so many people and able to connect. And Chitachi says that's great. And
hey, Chitachi.
And she's a great podcaster. And you think I'm on the air a lot. She's on the air multiple times a week doing all kinds of cool stuff. So definitely connect with her too.
Yeah.
And now before you go, you're going to join me in saying their names. We do that every day here after talking to Kimberly Crenshaw, asking her, what should we do to support the Black community? And she said, say their names. And I always start by showing this picture of Titus Kaffir's painting of a young mother from Time magazine. You see the pandemic of the blue glove pandemic glove on your wrist. And on the right is a photo that you may not have seen before, Antonio. That's a young Larsenia Floyd with young George Floyd in her arms. And she would die 2 years almost to the day before he would be killed in Minneapolis. I don't know if you've seen this photo before, but stunning.
I have not.
And such a sad photo. So we are now going to say their names. And Rahajan worked really hard to put together a 5-page list that we are not going to read tonight. We can't read all of it, in part because of how much is going on, and we just don't have the time. And I want to make sure that I give back time to our friend Antonio, who's been with us for now 90 plus minutes.
I had so much fun though, and it went by so quickly.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. But let's just read a few of the names, and then what I'll tell everybody watching is that the names here are just the surface, and the names go on for 5 pages all the way back to Emmett Till and beyond. It's so tragic what I'm going to do is every day I'm going to do about a page of names, so that tomorrow
Yeah.
I'll do another page, and then tomorrow, the day after, another page. Because the other day we did an episode on what's going on in Wisconsin and Wisconsin crisis, and our friend this is the episode we did, and Bob Anthony and I read all 5 pages of names. It was so sad and so heavy to read all of them, and we won't have the time tonight. But just know that we do this out of respect, and because Kimberly Crenshaw asked us to do this. So I'm just going to start us off. I'll read a few names, and then you can read a few, and then we can go back and forth till we get to the end of the page. And what we'll say to everybody is that some of these names are household names, but some of these names are names you don't know. And take the time to do the research and learn about them the way that Rahajian has done. So I'll just point out that Jacob Blake is still with us, shot in the back by police so many times. Now we're just going to read the names, and let me start. Danny Buckley, and this, look at these ages also, that tells you a story. Danny Buckley, 61. Treyfard Pellerin, David McAtee, George Floyd, and Breonna Taylor.
Ahmaud Arbery, Michael Dean, Atiana Jefferson, Elijah McClain, Botham Jean, Antoine Rose, Danny Thomas, Danny Ray Thomas, Stephen Clark, Anthony Weber,
Heather Hare, Aaron Bailey, Keenan King, Anthony Holmes Juriques, Charlena Siobhan Lyles, Jordan Edwards, age 15. He also added in the names of people who've been killed by white supremacists. And Srinivas Kochibotla and Alok Madasani were shot by white supremacists on February 22nd, 2017. And Kochibotla died of his wounds. So go ahead, pick up the last few names, please.
Quinice Hayes, Chad Robertson, Muhammad Muyamin Jr., Terrence Crutcher.
And with that, we will pause on that list today. Just how sad it is that the list exists. How sad it is it's so long that we're going to pause on this today and come back and pick it up tomorrow. I know I kind of put you on the spot. What does it mean to you that we say their names, that we do this?
You know, I think that it's important that we acknowledge those who we've lost to racism and to police brutality and to the severe neuroses that is racism. I pray, I hope that we can move forward from this very dark chapter in our lives. But the only way that we do this is by confronting it. And by saying these people's names who we've lost, I hope really does bring an awareness to what is happening. And I hope that not only just an awareness, an actual change to legislation, a change to what people feel like they can do to the Black body. We are valuable, we mean something, we matter, and it cannot continue. It will not continue. And I'm committed to do whatever I can do to bring awareness to it and to end this devastating crisis that is white supremacy and racism.
Beautifully put. Thank you. Donna says, we are so proud and blessed. Please support this amazing book. We love you so much. Hashtag you next. Hemant watching it says, loving it. Sunny says, congratulations, following in all mediums. Rajan says, give me a heads up and I'll read the names with you sometime. That'll be wonderful, Rajan. And Robin says, you next. That's simple.
You next.
Yeah, I like that. And with that, we're going to say goodbye. Everybody buy the book, You Next. And look at him. He's going to just pull that out.
Every single time. Sree, I do want to just mention that the book has been reviewed by some of the most amazing artists and people who have contributed so much to the art and photography world. Jamel Shabazz, Kimberly Drew, John Edwin Mason, Maurice Wallace, Antoine Sargent, Hank Willis Thomas. If I can just really read quickly Hank Willis Thomas's blurb, he says that Johnson has created a snapshot of one of the Black community's oldest institutions. With a keen eye, he evokes memory of community and ritual and gives a glimpse into the Black man's sanctuary, showing that he has the makings of a great documentary photographer. And I really am committed to the world of documentary photography. I think that one of the ways in which we confront what is happening is by documenting it. And one of the things that I would like to do, like I mentioned earlier, is to really highlight the spaces that make us feel safe and whole. And I want to invite everybody else to invest in the spaces and the communities that does that for them. And I hope that this book really does bring awareness to all of that.
I've been interviewing a lot of authors. They don't hold their books up nearly enough. So you're modeling good behavior there. And I wanted to say, I'm so proud that you have a quote from Kimberly Drew. We hired her at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. You know that she was our rock star in the social media world, and she was just great. And I'm glad that she's got a quote in here for you. A much needed addition to writing and documentation of Black barbershop culture. As a documentary photographer, writer, and researcher, Johnson's unwavering love for Black people and Black culture shines through. Kimberly Drew, curator, co-editor of Black Futures, and author of This Is What I Know About Art. Congratulations. We're so happy with you. So many comments are still coming in. Charles says, can't wait to get your book. Tammy says, see you, Tone. We're proud of you in Philly. And thank you very much, Antonio Johnson, for your great photography and book. Blessings to you and your family and loved ones. And with that, we'll say goodbye to all of you. Thank you for joining us. And thank you, Antonio. Tone, the very best. We'll see you, okay?
I would love to be back.
Okay, we'll have you back. Thank you. He was fantastic. We want to thank our sponsors once again. Charles Cunnan Carroll is watching right now, so let's thank him. The Inventor in You, a step-by-step guide to your first invention by Charles Cunnan Carroll, developer of more than 80 patents, at Inventor Charles and guidetoinvention.com. We're also grateful to Nunbelievable, divinely delicious cookies on a mission, 20% off with the code SREE, SREE, and check out nunbelievable.com, please. And Muckrack Academy, fundamentals of social media for journalists, PR pros, and everyone. Free certification available, mrac.co/social. More than 4,000 people have taken that course. And a big shout out to our our event partner, Rise or Fall Together, the One Shared World Interdependence Summit 2020, Thursday, September 17th, a free conference. Register now, oneshared.world, oneshared.world. Look at that. Some of the world's most interesting, famous people are all going to be here, and we'd love to have you join. And please spread the word about You Next. And a reminder of what's coming up tomorrow. Learning from philosophers, Eric Wiener's new book, The Socrates Express, In Search of Life Lessons from Dead Philosophers. That's on Thursday night at 9 p.m. and Friday night at 9 p.m. Fighting Disinformation with Melissa Ryan. Thanks very much, everybody. We'll